Hello everybody, JGC Anime here, and today we are going to be reviewing Fate Unlimited Blade Works, one of the first ever adaptations by Ufotable that got a lot of acclaim and popularity. So yeah, let's just hop right into this. So a basic introduction, I want to do an introduction to the whole concept of Fate first. Basically, Fate is a visual novel series that focuses a lot on like this one character called Shiro during this whole thing called the Holy Grail War. And Fate is a 3 different storyline like concept where there's 3 different routes, 1 different character for each route, and they all have their own unique stories. The one we'll be reviewing today is the second route, as it is the first one animated by the company Ufotable, which also made Demon Slayer. Note, the reason I'm not covering the first route, which is called Stay Night, is because of the fact that there's only 1 adaptation of the series and it's terrible. Like, I really lost interest like halfway through the first episode. It was terrible. And I ended up just playing through the visual novel version of that one, which I'll maybe make a review on it. I don't know, it's not an anime, so I don't know if I can or cannot, but today we're going to be talking about the second route. So, as I mentioned, basically, the whole story is that the main character, Shiro, is entering this Holy Grail War where a bunch of people summon these servant-type characters to fight for the Holy Grail, and they just fight amongst each other to play things out, to just like fight to see who wins. It's like a battle of life and death. This route is focused on the character Tosaka, which is one of the probably most interesting characters in the series, and their whole escapades begin where they're enemies but they're friends, but they're enemies but they're friends, and it just plays out that way. But yeah, let's just get right into this. So, things I liked. Well, for one, as the same with Demon Slayer, the action for this series is phenomenal. It looks amazing visually, and with the sound effects and music, they hit really hard, really well. Although, the impact probably would have been better if I did it on a TV screen, because I've watched a majority of the series on my computer, simply because, aka I've watched all of the Fate anime on my computer, due to the fact that I don't exactly have a TV at my disposal when I didn't have one at my disposal when I watched these episodes, because unlike other series where they say you have to have a TV to watch it, this one was one I just kind of went into thinking it would look as awesome as SAO did when I first watched it on my computer before I went to go see the movie on the TV. But yeah, this was, I guess it just didn't have as much impact when watching it on a computer, because just I put the DVD in my DVD player, and it's cool. But I just feel like I was missing some of the stuff, since, you know, you need a big, like, bulky TV to fully grasp the whole concept of what the action is. And so maybe that's why I'm not into Ufotable action that much, because while it looks good, it on the computer screen doesn't exactly appeal to me as much. But the action was, of course, amazing, and a lot of the characters I really like in this series. Whereas a majority of the characters in stuff like Demon Slayer I didn't care about, I really liked a lot of characters in Fate Unlimited Blade Works. There were a lot of great characters, great moments, and a lot of really well-written stuff that I didn't see coming, or I did see coming because it was spoiled for me by people on YouTube who decide to spoil every single detail. So a few of those weren't really stuff I didn't already know, but yeah. If I had to say stuff I disliked, well, it's more of plot-wise, because there's a few things that happened since I played the first route's visual novel form first. There were a lot of characters I both liked and disliked, so seeing them in the second version is a lot more interesting, because it's a completely different storyline from what happened before. So there were some things I liked and disliked from that as well, which I can get into a spoiler section in a bit. So mainly what I disliked were some decisions that happened in the second route, or the Unlimited Blade Works route. But I didn't really have a problem with the story. While I definitely admit that there were times it was both too slow or too fast, I still had a pretty good time. If we're going into spoiler-free thoughts, I'd have to say that there's some astounding moments in this, but there was also some weird parts. For one, it's the first ever Ufotable, or any just almost anime in general, where I've started with the visual novel or book, because I normally would read the books first and then I would watch the anime unless I was highly invested in the anime. It was the first time I ever watched one in Japanese. Like, I'm so used to waiting for the English dub of that stuff to come out, but because I played a visual novel where the Japanese voices were in it, I just wanted to watch the Japanese because it just felt more right. So, yeah, I can't give an opinion on both since I never watched the dub, but for the sub, I did have a decently good time. But I guess we can go into more spoilerous stuff in the spoiler section now, because if I'm being honest, there's a lot of stuff that I want to say that can only be said in the spoiler section. So without further ado, here's a timestamp to when the spoiler section's finished, and yeah, I'm gonna count down from 5 and let's begin this discussion of spoilers. If you've already seen Unlimited Blade Works, I recommend sticking around for the spoiler section to get my full thoughts. But if you haven't seen it, I recommend skipping to the end because, you know, we don't want you learning things that you might want to say for yourself, unlike me. So yeah, let's hop right into this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so beginning these spoiler-ish section thoughts. There's this one character in Fate, where in Fate Stay Night, she was one of my favorite characters, and probably still stands as one of my favorite characters to this day, called Ilya. She is Shiro's technical sister, like his older sister, but they don't reveal that until the Heaven's Feel movies, which makes me wonder why they held off on that for so long. But she was probably one of my favorite characters in this story. So much so that I ended up watching the spin-off series Fate Prisma Ilya, despite it being one of the weirdest things I've ever watched. Like, it's really weird. Not like insanely weird, but like weird enough to make me think, what? It's also the first ever Fate series I actually finished. But I ended up watching that because I really liked Ilya. But sadly, in this route of the Fate franchise, Ilya ends up dying, which is less than satisfying for someone who actually liked the character. And since she didn't die in the first route, Fate Stay Night, I was very disappointed when she did die in this route because she's still one of my favorite characters. Would I have wanted a route for her in the story? No, because, you know, brother and sister thing. But I still thought she was a great character with a great story arc in pretty much every storyline, despite the fact in every storyline besides Fate Stay Night being a lot more reduced, even in the third route where she's one of the front and center characters. So it was disappointing when she died, and as I mentioned, the action's still pretty good. I had a lot of fun with the action. It was really awesome, but I just guess I didn't really feel the impact of it. It's both good and bad, but I can't really explain it. It's like, I feel like there were times the action was underplayed, sometimes it was just right, and sometimes it was overplayed. It's a very weird dynamic, because I don't really have any best examples, as I just rewatching this recently wasn't exactly an easy thing to do since I have so many different animes on my plate to add to my review section. But all in all, though, there were a lot of good and bad. One thing that was very disappointing was the fact that even though this was the Tosaka or Rin Tosaka route, she doesn't actually fully get together with Shiro at the end, because even though she is one of the best characters in the story, and it is meant to be her route, all that happens is Shiro confesses to her in like episodes 12 to 13 or 14, I don't know which episode he confessed to her, but they don't actually like confirm getting together. They just are like a team. Like they're a good team, and that's about it. And while I definitely think it was very well paced for the most part, there are some moments that were too slow or too fast. Like there's this new character introduced in the final episode, and she's like a super interesting character, and I wish she could have been in the story more, since she ends up making an appearance in Fate Prisma Ilya, because, you know, she and Tosaka hate each other, but it's such an interesting dynamic that I wanted to see more of, but we don't see much. We don't see much of her. She's like in one scene and then gone for the rest. And the last episode kind of jumps from place to place, and it feels unnecessarily long, and it's just weird. But there are other times where it's really, really slow. Like the whole thing where I'm trying to come up with the good example because there's like 3 examples off the top of my head that I want to say, but I don't know how to translate them all into words. There are 3, I'm gonna list one off the top of my head where one would kind of be the dragging out of the scenes between Archer and Tosaka. Archer is basically this other character, or like one of the servants in the story, and he is interesting because he's really interesting, especially since it's revealed later in the story that he is basically the main character Shiro, but from the future after he became a hero of justice. And because people don't want heroes of justice, he died in vain before becoming a spirit himself, like an illegal spirit. And it's so interesting, and it would have been super awesome if it wasn't spoiled way beforehand for me when I was trying to search up like different. I really like the music in Fate, so I ended up looking up the intros, and while I was listening to the intros, I ended up scrolling through the comments, and of course, people have to mention spoilers. There were still a few things that definitely caught me by surprise, but a majority of them did not because I already learned about them. If we're going to actually talk about some random stories here, there's actually this really funny story I want to quickly share about while watching the show. When I first started the show, I know how I mentioned earlier that I watched it subbed, but if I'm telling the truth, I actually started watching it dubbed. But after the special 40-minute episode, at like episodes 12 or 13, I don't know, I'm not good with numbers, but one of those episodes after that 40-minute special, because I just couldn't get used to the English voices, I went back and rewatched everything from the sub version so I could continue watching from there. That's just a random story to share, but yeah. There's a lot of stuff I both like and hate in this story, and I still had a decently good time. I could say it's better than Demon Slayer, but I wouldn't say it's like the most god-tier thing I've ever watched. Just from Ufotable, I've not seen that much stuff that's generally shocked me and gawked me, if that's the right word. Because the only time I can ever think of that I've watched from them that I actually was like amazed at was the promotion for another franchise from Type Moon, who made Fate, but for another game they were making that looked amazing. But I guess it's just, this wasn't that satisfying. It was a fine series. It was very well done. If I had to pick between this one and Heaven's Feel, I'd go over that one on I just won't say anything. But yeah, both are decent in their own right. But I'll just talk about Heaven's Feel in its own video. But I guess I just don't really fully get the hype of Fate, or maybe it's just due to the fact of my obsession with medieval storylines, and seeing the Fate series is hard because I'm more used to medieval type concepts, and seeing these non-medieval type concept is hard on me. But no, I'm not against Fate. In fact, I have been trying to binge through a bunch of the Fate media, but it's hard because, you know, not every single place there's every single Fate product, and I don't have enough money to afford every single streaming service. But yeah, it's fine. I still had a good time with this anime, and we're at the conclusion now, I guess. So basically, I'm saying this anime is decently good. I had a really good time watching, and it wasn't the most amazing thing I've seen, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I liked it. And while it's not my favorite route in the story, it was definitely one of the best animated routes in the story. I definitely think it had a lot of potential, and for the potential it had, it was really good. I don't think it's the best thing I've ever watched, but it was definitely a fun ride, and that's why I rate this anime a 7 out of 10. Pretty good, a few flaws, but I still liked it a lot and definitely had a good time. And that's all I really have to say, so yeah. Thank you all for listening. If you're new to the channel and you want to see more reviews, don't forget to subscribe. And I hope to see you all in future videos. Thank you all for watching. I shall see you all around. Peace.